6:22 a.m. Strait of Hormuz, 18 nautical miles west of Qeshm Island. An Iranian Su-22 just released 2 unguided bombs over a U.S. Navy task group. Both bombs hit the water 340 meters from the USS Monterey. The task group had less than 4 minutes before the second Iranian aircraft completed its attack run. Welcome to Global Warfare TV. What you are about to hear is a reconstruction of the most aggressive single act of Iranian air power against U.S. naval forces since the tanker war of the 1980s. 2 aircraft, 3 ships, a weapons release over one of the busiest maritime choke points on the planet, and a chain of command that came within one authorization level of ordering a full air defense shootdown over the Strait of Hormuz. We are breaking down every phase of this incident. The intelligence failure that allowed Iranian jets to reach release altitude, the weapons, the response, and the consequences that nobody wanted to talk about publicly for months afterward. To understand how Iranian jets got within bomb release range of a U.S. naval task group, you have to understand what the task group was doing and what the Iranians knew about it. The task group consisted of 3 ships. The USS Monterey, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, hull designation CG-61, displacing 9,600 tons, armed with 122 vertical launch system cells and the AN/SPY-1B Aegis combat system. The USS Oscar Austin, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer DDG-79, and the USNS Medgar Evers, a Lewis and Clark-class dry cargo ship running a scheduled replenishment. The task group had entered the strait from the Gulf of Oman at 4:45 a.m. They were transiting westbound toward the Persian Gulf at 14 knots. Standard formation: the Monterey leading, the Oscar Austin, in trail on the port quarter, the Medgar Evers in the center of the formation. The Medgar Evers is not a combatant. She has a crew of 123 civilian mariners and approximately 20 naval personnel. She is unarmed. She is, in military terms, a soft target. And she was positioned in the center of the formation, the standard configuration for protecting a logistics vessel during transit. At 5:48 a.m., the Monterey's AN/SPY-1B radar picked up 2 airborne contacts launching from the direction of Bandar Abbas Air Base. The contacts were tracked climbing to approximately 15,000 feet. Speed, 540 knots. Profile, consistent with fixed-wing military aircraft. The Monterey's CIC classified the contacts as probable IRIAF military aircraft, Islamic Republic of Iran Air Force, and issued a standard precautionary alert. Both aircraft were squawking Iranian military transponder codes. This was logged. Here is where the intelligence system failed. At Bandar Abbas, Iranian Su-22 fighter attack aircraft are routinely operated for coastal patrol and training missions. They have done so for decades. The AN/SPY-1B had tracked dozens of similar profiles over prior transits. The radar contacts on the morning of this incident were categorized automatically by the Aegis system as routine military air activity based on historical pattern matching. The watch officer in the CIC reviewed the contacts, noted the pattern match, and did not escalate to the commanding officer. He should have. What the pattern matching did not account for was the altitude. Su-22s conducting coastal patrol typically operate at 5,000 to 8,000 feet. These 2 were at 15,000 feet and climbing. That altitude gives a jet aircraft and an unguided bomb significantly more range and kinetic energy on release. It also puts the aircraft above the low-altitude clutter that can degrade certain radar tracking modes. 15,000 feet was not a patrol altitude. It was an attack altitude. The watch officer's second error: he did not cross-reference the launch timing with the intelligence brief distributed at 4 a.m. that morning, which had flagged elevated IRGCN and IRIAF activity in the Bandar Abbas vicinity, and recommended heightened sensor vigilance for potential air-launched threats. That brief had been distributed to all watch stations. It had been acknowledged. It had not been incorporated into the watch officer's situational picture at the moment the contacts appeared. The contacts reached their release point at 6:22 a.m. At 6:22:04, the Monterey's radar registered two objects separating from the lead aircraft at 14,800 feet altitude, 7.3 nautical miles from the task group. Unguided bombs. In Soviet-era classification, likely OFAB 250 class general-purpose bombs, 250 kilograms each. Freefall, no guidance. But released from 14,800 feet at 540 knots of aircraft speed, they carry significant kinetic range and predictable ballistic trajectory. The Aegis system tracked both objects immediately. Predicted impact point for Bomb 1, 280 meters off the port bow of the USS Monterey. Predicted impact point for Bomb 2, 390 meters off the starboard quarter of the USNS Medgar Evers. Both predictions were within the task group's formation envelope. At 6:22:07, 3 seconds after weapon release, the Aegis system automatically flagged the contacts as inbound ordnance, and the Combat Information Center elevated to Threat State Alpha. General Quarters was called across all three ships at 6:22 and 9 seconds. The commanding officer of the USS Monterey reached the bridge at 6:22:41. Bomb 1 hit the water at 6:22:51. The detonation, the OFAB 250, uses a delayed action fuse, sent a column of water approximately 40 meters high. The shockwave was felt aboard the Monterey. No damage to the ship. Distance from hull, 340 meters. Sailors on the weather deck who had been caught outside during the General Quarters call reported the pressure wave as physically painful. Bomb 2 hit at 6:22:54. It detonated 520 meters from the Medgar Evers, slightly wider than the Aegis prediction. Column of water, shockwave. No physical damage to the logistics ship. Both bombs had missed, but in the Strait of Hormuz, across 18 nautical miles of water, both weapons had been released with clear, deliberate intent against U.S. naval vessels. This was not a navigational error. This was not a misidentification. The Iranian aircraft had flown directly at the task group, climbed to attack altitude, and released ordnance over American warships. Now the task group commander, aboard the Monterey, had less than 4 minutes before the second Iranian aircraft completed its own attack run. This is Global Warfare TV. Let's talk about what those 4 minutes actually looked like. The task group commander was a Rear Admiral embarked aboard the Monterey for the transit. That fact matters enormously. The presence of a flag officer in the task group chain of command meant that the authorization level for a lethal response was immediately available. He did not have to reach up to Fifth Fleet for permission to engage. Under the standing ROE, a flag officer at the tactical level can authorize self-defense engagement of hostile aircraft following a confirmed hostile act. The first bomb drop was a confirmed hostile act. Under the law of armed conflict, that authorization threshold had been crossed at 6:22:51. At 6:23:15, the Rear Admiral authorized weapons free against the second incoming aircraft if it entered the established engagement envelope, designated at 10 nautical miles. The USS Monterey carries the SM-2 Block 3A surface-to-air missile. Range against airborne targets, approximately 90 nautical miles. Speed, Mach 3.5. The Monterey had 8 SM-2s queued in her forward VLS. She could have engaged the second aircraft at 6:22:15 before it reached its own release point. She did not. The reason? The second aircraft, after watching its wingman complete the bomb run, had broken away from the task group bearing and turned north. Radar track showed it climbing and accelerating toward Iranian airspace. It was no longer on an attack profile. At 6:23:44, it crossed back over Iranian territorial airspace. The second aircraft did not drop its ordnance. The tactical decision point the Rear Admiral faced at 6:23:15, when he authorized weapons free, expired without a shot being fired. The threat had disengaged. But the 40 seconds between that authorization and the second aircraft's withdrawal were 40 seconds, during which the Aegis system had a valid firing solution. The SM-2 was ready, and one order would have sent a surface-to-air missile climbing toward an Iranian military aircraft over the Strait of Hormuz. If the second aircraft had continued its run for 40 more seconds, it would have entered the 10 nautical mile engagement envelope. The SM-2 would have been fired. The aircraft and its crew would almost certainly have been destroyed. 40 seconds. That is how close the Strait of Hormuz came to a full air engagement between U.S. and Iranian military forces that morning. The immediate aftermath was controlled chaos. The USS Oscar Austin increased speed and repositioned to cover the Medgar Evers starboard quarter, the direction from which the second Iranian aircraft had approached. The task group commander ordered the formation to increase speed to 22 knots and hold formation until they cleared the strait's narrowest point. Both ships activated their AN/SLQ-32 electronic warfare suites. The Oscar Austin launched her embarked MH-60R helicopter to establish an air picket ahead of the formation. At 6:41 a.m., the task group cleared the narrowest point of the strait and entered the broader Persian Gulf waters. The immediate threat envelope opened. Speed was reduced to 16 knots. The report to 5th Fleet and CENTCOM had already been transmitted at 6:23 a.m., while the second aircraft was still airborne. CENTCOM's duty officer flagged it immediately. Within 25 minutes, 2 FA-18E Super Hornets from the USS Abraham Lincoln, operating in the northern Arabian Sea, were diverted toward the Gulf at maximum speed as a contingency combat air patrol. They did not end up entering the strait. By the time they were on station, the situation had de-escalated, but the Lincoln's CAP being vectored toward the strait at all tells you everything about how seriously CENTCOM viewed those two bomb drops. The intelligence reconstruction that followed over the next week established the following. The two Su-22s had launched from Bandar Abbas Air Base at 5:44 a.m. Their flight plan, filed with Iranian Air Traffic Control, listed the mission as a maritime training exercise. The aircraft were armed before takeoff with two OFAB 250 bombs each. The lead aircraft expended both of its bombs. The wingman retained its full ordnance load. The question of why the wingman turned away rather than pressing its own attack run was debated extensively in the after-action assessment. 3 theories emerged. Theory 1, the wingman pilot lost his nerve. After watching the lead aircraft's bombs fall short and seeing a U.S. Naval task group clearly not destroyed, clearly now at general quarters with weapons-free authorization, the wingman assessed the risk of continuing the run as unacceptable. This is the human factor explanation. Theory 2, the wingman received a recall order from Bandar Abbas Command. Signals intelligence from the period immediately following the first bomb drop showed elevated encrypted communications between Bandar Abbas and the aircraft. The content was not decrypted in time to affect the tactical situation, but the volume and timing of transmissions are consistent with a command-level abort order issued after the lead aircraft's weapons fell wide. Theory 3, the wingman's target was never the task group. Internal simulations developed by the Office of Naval Intelligence assess the possibility that the entire operation was a calculated demonstration. Drop bombs near but not on U.S. ships, document the U.S. response, and use the event to signal Iranian air capability without triggering a kinetic response that would invite retaliation. Under this theory, the wingman's retention of ordnance was always the plan. The bombs were always going to miss. The point was the release itself, the message. I assessed Theory 3 as plausible but unconfirmed. Pentagon analysts assessed Theory 2 as most likely based on signal traffic timing. Theory 1 was not officially dismissed. The State Department delivered a formal protest to the Iranian government through the Swiss embassy, which handles U.S. interests in Tehran, within 18 hours of the incident. The protest described the bomb drops as a deliberate and unprovoked attack on U.S. naval vessels in international waters and demanded an explanation. Iran's response, delivered 3 days later, denied that any Iranian aircraft had released ordnance over international waters. The statement claimed the aircraft had been conducting a routine training exercise and that any weapons released had been over Iranian territorial waters or the adjacent exclusive economic zone. The statement was factually incompatible with the Aegis radar tracks, the GPS-stamped acoustic detonations, and the column of water visible on the Monterey's bridge camera footage. The footage was reviewed internally. It was not publicly released. There were no casualties. No ships were damaged. The two bombs had missed, one by 340 meters, one by 520 meters. In physical terms, the morning had cost the U.S. Navy nothing. But the task group's CIC watch officer, who had failed to connect the radar data with the intelligence brief, lost his position. He was reassigned from CIC watch duties pending a formal review. The review found that he had had the intelligence brief, had the radar data, and had failed to connect them in time. His career did not end, but it changed direction permanently. The Rear Admiral's decision not to fire the SM-2 after the second aircraft began its withdrawal was reviewed at CENTCOM level and found to be correct. Restraint consistent with proportional response and de-escalation principles, the review stated. What it did not state, but what every naval officer who read that review understood, was that if the SM-2 had been fired and the second aircraft destroyed, the geopolitical consequences in the Strait of Hormuz would have been immediate, severe, and almost impossible to contain. Iran would have had one of its military jets shot down over what it calls its sovereign waters. The IRGCN had dozens of fast boats in Bandar Abbas Harbor. Shore-based HY-2 Silkworm anti-ship missiles were positioned within range of the strait. An SM-2 kill on an IRIAF aircraft would not have ended the engagement. It would have started a new one. The Rear Admiral knew that. His decision not to fire in the 40 seconds when he could have was not hesitation. It was calculation. The task group completed its mission. The Medgar Evers offloaded her cargo. The Monterey and the Oscar Austin continued their patrol. The Strait of Hormuz remained open, but the commercial shipping world noticed. Lloyd's War Risk Assessors received the incident report within 72 hours. The Strait's risk classification was elevated for the first time in 4 years. Transit insurance premiums rose 14% within 1 week. 3 major Asian shipping firms filed requests with their flag state governments to consider alternative routing through the Cape of Good Hope. And the oil markets briefly moved. Because in the end, the Strait of Hormuz is not a military problem. It is an economic choke point wrapped in a military problem. 40% of the world's seaborne oil passes through those 21 miles. Every incident, every bomb drop, every near miss, every SM-2 that is cued but not fired, ripples outward from the water into markets, into insurance tables, into corporate routing decisions. 2 bombs fell into the strait that morning. Neither hit anything, and the world shook slightly anyway. That is the power of the strait. That is what the Iranians understand and demonstrate. That is what the U.S. Navy is there to contain. If this breakdown of the Hormuz bombing incident gave you a clearer picture of how air threats and naval deterrence interact in one of the world's most contested corridors, subscribe to Global Warfare TV. We cover these operations at the depth they deserve. Hit the notification bell and leave your analysis in the comments. Theory 1, 2, or 3. Why did the wingman turn back? Stay vigilant, stay informed. I'll see you in the next one.